Hi guys, I'm Faida and welcome to Freedom is Mine. Today we're going to be talking about the African diaspora in Colombia.
Freedom is
Before we begin, for those of you who don't know, I currently organise African diaspora tours in Colombia. So if you're interested in joining me on one of my trips, then please do get in touch. Now there's so much I could tell you about the Afro Colombian population. Way too much to cover in one video. So I'm going to bring you not one, not two, but 3 different videos on the African diaspora in Colombia. In part 1, we're going to explore the history and culture of the African diaspora. In part 2, we'll focus on 2 distinct ethnic groups, the Raizales and the Palenqueros. And in part 3, we'll go into more depth about the political and social issues that Afro-Colombians face. All 3 videos are equally important for you to have an accurate understanding of the Afro-Colombian community. So please be sure to check out part 2 and 3 right after this.
Colombia has one of the biggest African diaspora populations in the world. Estimates at the size of the population vary, but according to the United Nations, 26% of the Colombian population is Afro-descendant, which brings the number to almost 13 million. There is a black presence in every major city in Colombia, but the biggest Afro-descent populations live in the coastal regions. Departments with big Afro populations include Magdalena, Bolívar, Sucre, Valle del Cauca, Cauca, and Nariño. The department with the biggest black population is Chocó, of which the capital is Quibdó. According to the Colombian Department for National Statistics, there are 4 categories into which Afro-Colombians are divided: the black community, the Afro-Colombian population, the Palenqueros, and the Raizales. The first 2 are broad terms which encompass Afro-Colombians from all regions and cultural backgrounds.
However, 2 Afro-Colombian groups have their own language and a distinct culture. Those are the Palenqueros and the Raizales. We'll learn more about them in part 2. Apart from the Raizales and the Palenqueros, the vast majority of Afro-Colombians speak Spanish and are of the Catholic faith. The Spanish first began trafficking enslaved Africans to Colombia in the 16th century to work on the sugar plantations and in the gold and emerald mines. They were brought in to replace the indigenous enslaved workforce that had been decimated under Spanish rule.
Because the enslaved Africans all came from different countries and spoke different languages, they communicated with each other via drums. They used this clever system to warn runaway slaves of approaching Spanish forces. Enslaved African women used cane rows to braid maps and escape routes into their hair, undetected by their European masters. They also hid nuggets of gold and emeralds under their head wraps, and smuggled seeds inside their braids, which they used to plant crops when they escaped and formed free settlements. Although enslaved Africans and Afro-Colombians fought in the War for Independence in 1810, it was not until 40 years later that slavery was abolished in Colombia on the 21st of May 1851. Since 2001, this date has been annually celebrated as Afro-Colombian Day.
To hear more about the history of Afro-Colombians, check out part 3, where we'll discuss how the conflict in Colombia has affected the black community over the past 60 years. For now though, let's look at some Afro-Colombian culture. Colombia is world famous for its music, and Afro-Colombians have played a huge part in that.
Some of Colombia's greatest salsa performers were of Afro descent, including Wilson Manyoma and Yoé Arroyo. Beloved folk singer Toto La Momposina combines African and indigenous influences in her folk music. Modern hip-hop groups such as Chokib Town and the Palenque group Combilesa Mi use their platform to connect with the younger generations. In the coastal cities of Cartagena and Barranquilla, you will hear African Soukous-infused champeta music, of whom Afro-Colombian singer Charles King is often hailed as the godfather.
Now we've got to talk about Afro-Colombian festivals. Everyone loves a party, and Colombia hosts some amazing Afro-focused festivals every year.
The most famous are Petronio Alvarez in Cali, San Pacho in Quibdó, and the Drum Festival in Palenque. There is also Negro Fest held in Medellin every year, and not to mention nationwide celebrations for Afro-Colombian Day on May the 21st. Mardi Gras Carnival in Barranquilla is the second biggest in Latin America after Brazil, and while it's not a specifically black festival, there is a huge Afro-Colombian influence.
That's it from me. Join me in part 2 where we'll be talking about 2 distinct Afro-Colombian ethnic groups, the Palenqueros and the Raizales.
freedom.